I thought it was just another Thanksgiving dinner until my phone buzzed with a message that chilled my spine. Get up and leave. Don't say anything to anyone. They had said it would be simple. Just dinner. Mom texted 3 days ago, followed by a little heart emoji she never used when we were on good terms. After years of distance, it was odd enough that she even remembered Thanksgiving. But I was too tired to argue, and maybe part of me still wanted to believe there was something salvageable beneath the frost. Their house looked the same: white colonial facade, symmetrical windows, the same brass knocker I once slammed shut in a rage. Inside, the warmth of the chandeliers and the smell of rosemary and cloves tried too hard to say, "We're still a family." I hadn't crossed the threshold in nearly 3 years. The table was already set, and of course perfect. Silver-rimmed china, folded napkins like roses, the turkey angled just so. Sharon Moore didn't know how to do casual. She staged dinners like opening nights. Greg stood from the head of the table to greet me, arms stiff but open like we were strangers at a conference. Emily rushed over with a dramatic little gasp of rage and hugged me too tightly. Nick was there. That was my first real warning. He sat at Emily's left, dressed better than I remembered, a soft smile that didn't meet his eyes. We hadn't spoken since the breakup 5 years ago. Back then, Emily had comforted me, swore she'd always be on my side. Now they looked like they shared closets and whispered secrets. The wine flowed fast. Everyone was so interested in my life. How was the software company? Did I ever fix things with my old manager? Did I still live in that cramped apartment? Emily chimed in to say, "We're just so glad you're here. It means the world to us, really." I stared down at my plate. The mashed potatoes were too white, too fluffy, unreal. Emily stood with a crystal glass in hand, swaying like she was at a wedding. "I just want to say thank you," she said, voice warm, eyes darting toward my father. "It's been a long road, but you've both believed in me. And now I get to take on something really big." Before she could say more, my phone buzzed under the table. A short, sharp vibration, just one. I glanced down. "Get up and leave. Don't say anything to anyone." I blinked. No name. Just a gray bubble on my lock screen. I swallowed hard. Rachel, Mom asked, "You okay?" I nodded quickly and smiled. "Just work. It never stops." I should have gotten up, walked out. But I didn't. I needed to know what game they were playing. And more importantly, who was warning me. Nick's eyes flicked toward me briefly, but it was so fast I couldn't read it. Emily was still speaking now, standing behind Dad's chair. "This house. It's meant a lot to all of us. And I'm just so honored that you've decided to pass it on to me." My breath caught. I looked at Greg. He gave her a paternal nod, then raised his glass in a quiet toast. "You've earned it." My vision blurred. That house was promised to me. Since college. Since before Emily even cared about anything beyond auditions. We had documents. Conversations. My name. But none of them looked at me. My fingers trembled as I reached for the phone again, heart pounding. The next message was waiting. A photo. It was a blurry image of an email on more family letterhead with what looked like my signature on it. I leaned in. It was a release form, legally surrendering all property claims. I never signed that. They had forged it, and someone in this room knew it. Rachel looked again at the photo, blinking hard. Her throat tightened as she scrolled back up to the message. Then back down. That email. That signature. The cliffhanger gripped her before the rage could. Rachel looked at the message again, this time with the attached image, a forged email bearing her name and signature. They'd replaced me slowly, quietly, and thoroughly. I watched Emily cut into the turkey with the same antique silver knife I used to use at holiday dinners. Not a replica. The exact one with the tiny chip on the handle just where my thumb used to rest. She'd taken my spot at the table, my old place, setting my glass etched with an R, not an E. No one seemed to notice. Or maybe they all did. Dinner had blurred into noise, laughter, toasts, the kind of pleasantries that paper over secrets. I barely tasted anything. My mind kept looping back to the forged email. That signature wasn't just illegal, it was personal, precise, close enough to fool even me at first glance. After dessert, Mom's pumpkin pie, still overly spiced people, moved toward the living room. I slipped into the corner near the window phone in hand, back turned. I pulled up the photo again. That wasn't just any letterhead. It was mine, an old PDF template I'd created years ago when I helped Dad organize their estate files. The font, the layout, even the metadata still read Rachel Moore, final template. And there at the bottom was a digital signature with my full legal name. Time-stamped from 5 days ago. It had been submitted from my personal DocuSign account. My heart hammered. I opened the app. Last Friday. Confirmation of property release. Internal family memo. A file I'd never seen before marked signed. Except I hadn't. My sent mail had a record of it. But the access log showed an IP address that didn't belong to me. A VPN, maybe. Or worse, someone had guessed my login credentials. Someone who knew my routines, my devices, my trust patterns. I sat frozen as the room filled with idle chatter. Emily perched on the edge of the armrest across from me, clutching a glass of red wine with too much confidence. "Oh," she said casually, "I don't think you've heard. Nick's been helping me set things up. He's my financial advisor now. He's been amazing." Nick, who had wandered into the room with that same soft shoe swagger, gave me a nod that felt like a plea. I didn't blink. Sharon joined with a champagne flute in hand, touching Emily's shoulder gently. "She's done so well this year. We felt it was time to reward that effort." I couldn't resist. By giving her the house, Sharon sipped calmly. "It's more than just the house, sweetheart." Emily giggled. "They set up a new fund for me. Seed money for my creative business. Dad said I needed something of my own." "From the inheritance account?" I asked. Greg wandered in now, holding a file folder like it was a menu. "We're modernizing things," he said. "No more dusty paper trails." I stared at him. "So that means what?" No transparency. Sharon met my eyes and smiled like she was posing for a portrait. "It means we trust the right people now." I glanced at Nick, whose eyes darted toward the floor. "And you're one of the right people?" I asked him. He opened his mouth, then closed it. The silence said everything. Greg held out the folder toward me. "If you're concerned, we can clarify." Inside, nestled between thick pages, was a printed version of the same file I'd seen on my phone. "Your signed consent," Greg said. He actually sounded proud. I felt cold. "I didn't sign this." He looked puzzled. "It's electronic, time-stamped, authenticated. That doesn't make it real." He handed me the document. "You've been sent the link. You clicked it. You confirmed." My stomach dropped. 1 week ago, Mom had messaged me about some security settings on the family account. She said she needed me to confirm access so she could transfer some files from an old banking app. I didn't even look twice. I was in the middle of a product launch and just tapped approve. It wasn't a security update. It was the bait. They hadn't just stolen my name. They'd used my trust against me. Rachel froze. A faint memory resurfaced. Mom's text last week asking her to confirm a security request. She had clicked approve without thinking. Now it all made sense. I used to think manipulation looked like yelling. I was wrong. It sounds like gentle laughter and smells like pumpkin pie. The hallway creaked under my feet as I made my way to what used to be my bedroom. Now it was a storage space. A neat label on the door read Emily's Overflow. Inside, my childhood had been erased. In its place, unopened Amazon boxes, a spare dress rack, yoga mats. I stood in the doorway for a moment, letting the bitterness settle before stepping in and closing the door behind me. The air still smelled faintly of vanilla candles and dust. I perched on the corner of the old twin bed, opened my laptop, and connected to the house Wi-Fi, same password as always. My fingers flew over the keys, logging into my online bank account. And there it was, a trail of transfers. Small at first, $3,000 here, $5,500 there, then larger ones. A wire labeled Family Revitalization Fund to an account under the name Moore Legacy LLC, none of it authorized by me. The access log showed sign-ins from my account over the past few weeks, but one IP stood out: this house, specifically an access event on the 20th of November. The same time I was mid-flight from San Francisco to JFK. Someone had used my credentials from inside this house while I was in the air. I shut the laptop quickly when I heard a light knock. Sweetheart Sharon's voice, syrupy and slow, drifted through the door. I stayed seated, already hitting record on my phone in my lap. The door creaked open. She stepped in like she owned the room. Of course, in her mind she did. I know tonight was a lot, she said, settling into the old wicker chair in the corner. It's just, Emily's been through so much. She needs this stability. I didn't answer. She tried again. I spoke with Dr. Kim. You remember him, the therapist we saw after your freshman year? He thinks a sabbatical would do you good. Maybe a wellness retreat in Sedona. I looked up. Are you sending me away? Her smile faltered. No, darling, I'm offering you peace, clarity, and silence. Her expression hardened just a flicker. You always read too much into things. She stood. Think about it. Sometimes distance brings perspective. The door closed with a soft click behind her. I let out a breath I hadn't realized I was holding and reached under the bed frame. Years ago, when I still lived here, I'd wired a basic indoor security camera into the corner bookshelf. Dad had been against the idea. Said it was paranoid. I said it was for safety. I had almost forgotten it was there. I pulled up the old app on my phone, logged in. To my shock, it still worked. The last log was from 2 days ago. I scrolled through the footage. And there it was, Greg and Sharon in the dining room at 3:12 p.m., seated with papers between them. She won't make trouble, Dad had said. She's too proud. She won't know, Mom replied. The moment she clicks approve, it's done. Nick will explain away anything technical. I paused, the video pulse racing. This wasn't passive manipulation. It was coordinated theft. I uploaded the clip to a private cloud folder, password protected, double authenticated, and backed it up on an encrypted USB. Then carefully, I stood on the chair and retrieved the small black camera. I repositioned it discreetly, this time pointed straight at the long oak table where family meetings often occurred. This wasn't just for me anymore. They thought I was the same girl who used to cry and apologize when called too sensitive. They were wrong. Now I was watching them, recording everything, and they had no idea. Rachel downloaded the footage and reinstalled the hidden camera, this time aimed at the dining table. They wouldn't see it coming. They stole from me in whispers, so I learned to listen. The house always felt different in the daylight. Less like a memory, more like a stage. Morning sun filtered through the high kitchen windows, casting long shadows over the gleaming countertops. Everything was too clean, too staged, as if they were trying to hide fingerprints in plain sight. I left my laptop open on the living room table after breakfast, just checking flight options, I'd said casually, sipping coffee while everyone lingered around the dining room. Then I excused myself upstairs, pretending to brush my teeth. But I was watching through the app synced to my hidden camera. At 9:37 a.m., Greg entered the living room alone. He looked around, leaned slightly over my laptop, and there it was. He didn't touch the keyboard, but he pulled out his phone and angled the camera directly at the screen. 3 slow, steady shots. I clenched my jaw, paused the feed, and walked down calmly. By the time I reached the room, he was flipping through the newspaper like he hadn't just invaded my privacy. "Morning," he said without looking up. I nodded, scooped up the laptop, and carried it into the sunroom. Then I texted Nick. I need 10 minutes. Alone. Outside. He replied with just a thumbs up. 10 minutes later, we stood behind the old garden shed. The air smelled like damp leaves and rust. He looked uncomfortable, as if he knew something was coming but hoped it wouldn't. I didn't waste time. Did you think I wouldn't find out? I asked. Nick tensed. Find out what Greg photographing my laptop. The shell accounts tied to More Legacy LLC, the fake signature. You're the financial advisor, right? His face turned pale. I never signed over anything. Not the house, not the trust, not a single cent. But you already knew that. He rubbed the back of his neck, avoiding my gaze. Rachel, this. I didn't want to be involved. I told Emily I'd help with taxes, that's it. Then things just spiraled. Spiraled. I let out a bitter laugh. They used my identity to transfer assets. And you let them. I didn't know the extent. Don't lie to me, Nick. I have footage. Audio, emails. If I go down, you go with me. That got his attention. He looked up, eyes wide. You recorded them? I nodded, slowly pulled out my phone and played the clearest clip. Sharon's voice cool and deliberate. The moment she clicks, approve, it's done. He listened, silent hands buried in the pockets of his coat. After a moment, he whispered, I told her not to involve me like this. But she did. And you stayed. He finally met my gaze. What do you want from me? Help? Information. A list of accounts I don't know about yet. I'm not sure I have access, Nick. I stepped closer. If you don't help me when this breaks, and it will, you'll be buried with them. I'll make sure of it. He flinched. Silence. Then he sighed and pulled out his own phone. There are accounts that don't show up on any inheritance paperwork. They're under names you wouldn't recognize. Middlemen. Shells. I raised a brow. You have access. No, he said carefully. But I know where they keep the paperwork. And how they move the money. A branch cracked in the distance, probably just a squirrel, but we both startled. I'll need time, he added. And you'll need to pretend we're not talking. I gave him a cold smile. That part will be easy. As I walked back toward the house, Nick still standing in the shadow of the shed, I felt something unfamiliar bubble up in my chest. Not relief, not yet, but the beginning of leverage. Nick hesitated, then said, I know about accounts not listed in the official files. They're under third-party names. The moment I stopped defending myself, I started preparing for war. I didn't pack much, just what mattered. Laptop, backup drives, one small duffel of clothes. I left without saying goodbye. No note. No explanation. Just silence. The kind they'd have to fill in themselves. By the time the sky turned dark over Connecticut, I was behind a locked hotel door 3 towns away. Cheap, but clean. Anonymity was more valuable than luxury now. The weight in my chest began to shift, not gone, but changing. No longer fear. Something sharper. Intent. First, I checked the USB drive. The video footage was still intact. Multiple clips now, including Greg hovering over my laptop, Sharon whispering to Emily in the hallway, and one especially damning audio file where Dad muttered, As long as she doesn't make noise, we can finalize by Monday. I encrypted everything. Then came Nick's message, short and to the point, sending account list. Check names, none will be familiar. He was right. The PDF contained a spreadsheet of 14 accounts, none in my family's names. But I recognized the pattern shell companies with vague titles like Evercrest Holdings and Maple Anchor Group, and each linked to deposits made the week I'd traveled. There was no mistaking it anymore. This wasn't just betrayal, it was a laundering operation disguised as restructuring the family estate. I opened a secure browser and dialed an old number from memory. Connolly and Barrister Law. Who may I? It's Rachel Moore, I said. I need to speak with Susan. Privately. 15 minutes later, my former legal advisor was on the line. I can't name names yet, I began. But I'm emailing you redacted statements. I need them reviewed against trust guidelines, especially transfers involving LLCs. She paused. You think someone's siphoning your assets? I know they are. I just need to prove it in a way that stands up in court. Send what you can, she said quietly. I'll run preliminary scans tonight. Before I hung up, she added, Rachel, be careful. These aren't simple clerical errors. I was about to respond when my phone lit up again. Sharon. Decline. 1 minute later, voicemail. Rachel? What are you doing? You can't just disappear like this. You're scaring your father. Please call us back. This is ridiculous. Next, call Sharon again. Decline. I opened a blank document and began typing. November 10th, 2023. Email from Mom. Can you confirm the login for the family account? November 14th. Notice duplicate charge on credit card. November 20th. Flight to JFK. Access log shows login from home IP during flight. I documented everything, adding timestamps, screenshots, references. It wasn't just about memory anymore. It was evidence. One day, I'd hand it all over to a judge, to the press, maybe even to Emily herself. The laptop pinged. An email reply from Susan. I found something. They left behind metadata traces in the documents. Not all were scrubbed. You'll want to see this. My heart beat faster. But before I could open the attachment, a new email appeared, no sender listed. Subject, you're not alone. Message, I'm watching too. You're not alone. No signature, no name, no traceable metadata. I stared at the screen, unsure whether to feel comforted or hunted. Because one thing was now clear, someone else was in the shadows, and they'd been watching longer than I had. I stopped asking for the truth. Now I dig for it. The rain hadn't stopped since dawn. It pattered softly against the thin hotel windows, blurring the world beyond the glass. I sat cross-legged on the stiff bedspread, the hum of my laptop fan filling the silence. I hadn't spoken a word to anyone in hours, but the voice inside my head never shut up, not since I read the message, I'm watching too. You're not alone. Was it a warning or an offer? Either way, it was fuel. I tightened security on everything, installed military-grade encryption on my cloud backup, routed all email through a secure client, and set up two-factor authentication on every device. The digital skeleton I'd let my family build around me had to be dismantled fast. A call came in, Nick, this time through Signal, our newly agreed-upon encrypted line. I found something, he said. No greeting, just tension. Tell me. He sent a file through the app. I opened it and scrolled, eyebrows knitting. Greg transferred shares from a trust I never even knew existed, I murmured. Moore Investment Family Holdings, Nick said. Formed in 2017. Rachel, you were technically listed as a minor shareholder until 2 months ago. How electronic proxy vote? Same method they used for the house. Same forged signature. I leaned back against the headboard, heart pounding. Was Emily involved? There was a pause. She co-signed the last transfer. I didn't reply. I just hung up and opened Zoom, dialing into the meeting I'd scheduled hours ago. Mason Keller's square lit up the screen, gray-haired, dry-voiced, and unimpressed. You said this was urgent, he began, voice echoing in the hollow space of his office. I'm being erased, I said. Systematically. He didn't blink. You'll have to do better than metaphor. So I did. I uploaded the video of my father at the laptop, the audio of my mother's calm confession, and the forged document from the supposed proxy vote. Mason's face changed slowly, professional detachment, fading to a tighter, more interested expression. And you say these were signed digitally? Yes. Without my consent. IP logs confirm I wasn't in the state. Do you have 2 forms of independent timestamps? I do now. I forwarded the metadata and travel itinerary. He leaned forward. This is good. It's not airtight, but it's good. However, if you're going to take them down, you need more than smoke. You need fire. The kind that gets attention in court. What kind of fire? Anything that shows intent to incapacitate you, financially or otherwise. My stomach dropped. I opened another folder, one I'd barely glanced at since last night. Digital health records. I hadn't been to a doctor in months yet. There was a flagged update on my chart dated October 17th. Behavioral instability. Recommend psych eval if symptoms persist. It was from a clinician I'd never seen. My blood turned to ice. Rachel Mason said sharply. I uploaded the file. He exhaled slowly. This is bigger than just fraud. They're laying the groundwork to declare you unfit. That's how they seal the vault. I stared at the screen, trying to steady my breathing. They want me gone, I whispered. No, Mason corrected. They want you discredited. Same result, but quieter. After the call ended, I shut the laptop and rubbed my temples. Then my phone buzzed. No caller ID. I let it go to voicemail, but it didn't leave one. Then came a text, same number as before. They're planning to move fast. You've got 3 days. No signature, no context. But this time, I didn't feel paranoid. I felt hunted. And I knew the countdown had started. They thought I'd stay quiet if they branded me unstable. Instead, I became dangerous. The office suite in downtown Stamford was nothing fancy, just 4 beige walls, a desk, and a rented keycard. But it smelled of freedom, the kind you bought by the hour and paid for in silence. I hadn't slept more than a few hours in days, but my mind was razor sharp. Paranoia used to haunt me. Now it guided every move. I sat at the desk with my laptop open, a steaming cup of stale coffee beside me. The time on the screen read, ET 06 p.m. I opened the first browser tab, an online intake form for a psychiatric evaluation. I filled it in slowly. My real name. My old address. Sharon's emergency contact email. The same clinic she'd once casually recommended when I was under stress. Symptoms: erratic behavior, memory fog, financial confusion. I submitted the form and smiled faintly. The confirmation bill, $220 for a scheduled consultation, was set to auto-send to Sharon's inbox. Let her think I was unraveling. Or that someone was pretending to be me. Either way, she'd flinch. Then I moved to tab 2. The video footage I had of Greg had been trimmed and color filtered. This version didn't show his face clearly, only his hand hovering over my laptop, a male voice muttering, "She'll never know." I exported it with a timestamp that hinted it was older than it really was, suggesting this plot had begun long before I came home. I sent it to Emily using a throwaway account, Clarity. Sender47nmail.com. Subject: You should know what they're hiding. No signature, no context. I didn't expect a reply. But less than 15 minutes later, my burner phone buzzed. Emily. I let it ring twice before picking up. Rachel. Her voice was tight, breathy. Speaking. She didn't waste time. What is that video? Who sent it to me? Are you going to court? I took a slow sip of coffee. Sue my own sister. Why would I do that? Because you think we're stealing from you. Emily, I said gently. If I wanted revenge, don't you think I'd be louder about it? Silence. You're being manipulated, she whispered. I raised an eyebrow. Am I? I don't know what's going on, but I didn't sign up for this. I thought we were protecting. She stopped herself. Protecting who, I asked, even though I already knew. She hung up. Perfect. I turned to my encrypted chat with Mason. R move forward, M motion filed. Quiet. Just one account linked to Evercrest Holdings. They won't notice until tomorrow. I leaned back, heart drumming in that satisfying tempo that comes just before the first fracture. This wasn't a lawsuit. It was a test of balance. If I pushed too hard, they'd close ranks, but just enough pressure, they'd cannibalize themselves. The phone buzzed again, this time. Nick. N. Emily's crying. Thinks someone's blackmailing them. I almost laughed. Then just before shutting down my laptop for the day, I logged into my security feed from the Moore house. I had rerouted the cameras to a private cloud. Two of the old units still worked, one in the hallway, one mounted in the den, barely visible behind the molding. The hallway was quiet. But in the den, Greg stood in front of the fireplace, phone pressed to his ear, pacing hard. "No, I don't care who sent it," he barked. "What matters is, she has something. We need to clean this up. Now." He slammed the phone down. I didn't blink. They wanted silence. But I was only just getting started. The more they tried to erase me, the clearer I became. Monday brought cold light and colder steps. I walked into the courthouse with Mason beside me, both of us dressed like we belonged there. Sober black coat, no jewelry, face unreadable. It was time to make things official. The financial injury report wasn't a lawsuit, not yet. But it opened the gate. Mason slid the thick file across the desk to the court clerk, who took it with the tired indifference of someone processing pain by the dozen. What he didn't know was that inside those papers was the first domino. With the report filed, we could subpoena financial institutions, especially the banks where the shell accounts lived. "You'll have to make this clean," Mason said under his breath. "One false move and they'll spin it as a family dispute." "I'm not here for drama," I murmured. "I'm here for records." From the courthouse, I headed to one of the branches linked to a flagged account, a brick-fronted regional bank in Norwalk. The inside smelled like old carpets and disinfectant, quiet except for the soft clacking of keyboards. A young teller asked how she could help. "I'd like to speak to your branch manager," I said, sliding a business card across. I'd reactivated my consulting credentials just for moments like this. A few minutes later, a man in his 50s approached, tie too tight, smile too forced. "I understand you have questions about an account." "I do," I said. "This one." I pushed forward the file Mason had prepped, redacted, but with enough hints to rattle the right nerves. The manager read silently, then cleared his throat. "I'm afraid we can't discuss private accounts without court authority," I finished, "which is being processed. But I'm not asking for confidential information. Just this: has anyone named Emily Moore visited this branch in the past 2 weeks?" He hesitated, then gave the smallest nod. "I can't comment on the nature of the visits, but yes, recently." That was enough. "Thank you," I said, rising. "This conversation never happened." By mid-afternoon, I found myself at a quiet cafe near the harbor, nursing black coffee and trying not to read the same spreadsheet for the 4th time when a message pinged from an unknown number. "I saw your name on the court docket. I used to work for your father. We need to talk." Anna Delgado, Greg's former administrative assistant. Fired 3 months ago without notice. I responded carefully, using the secure line Mason had set up for whistleblowers. R. What made you reach out? A. I was told to shred documents. I didn't. R. What kind of documents? A. Internal memos. Meeting notes. Some with your name on them. R. Are you safe? A. I'm careful. She agreed to meet the next morning. I told her to choose the place somewhere neutral. But 5 minutes later, another message came through an attachment. I clicked. It was a scanned PDF, company memo dated September 3rd. To executive team, from Greg Moore. Subject: strategic planning Q4. Rachel remains a reputational and financial liability. We need to sever all implied ties before she becomes a legal problem. Beneath it, a handwritten note in the margin. Transfer authority must be executed before Thanksgiving. My stomach clenched. They hadn't just erased me, they'd scheduled it. My phone vibrated again. "Nick. They're planning to pin the embezzlement on you." For a second, everything stilled. Then I closed the file, locked the phone, and stared out the cafe window. They'd laid their trap. Now it was my turn. "You don't get to steal from me and hand me the blame." Not this time. I arrived at Mason's office early, before the phone started ringing, the kind of quiet that wraps around a person and demands clarity. Mason met me at the elevator, brows drawn together, phone still to his ear. She's in the conference room, he mouthed. Anna sat at the long table, hands folded around a stainless steel thermos like it was a life raft. She looked tired, but not scared. That made her dangerous. My kind of person. I brought everything I saved, she said softly, sliding over a small manila envelope and 2 flash drives. Inside the envelope, printed memos from Greg to his executive team outlining how to expedite restructuring of the family trust. One document referred to a shell corporation, Halberd Financial Partners, a name I didn't recognize, but Mason immediately flagged with a nod. I've seen this in offshore asset transfers, he murmured. They're laundering your inheritance. The flash drives contained internal emails and a folder labeled More Tashog Paths. Time stamped just weeks before Thanksgiving. Why did you keep all this? I asked. Anna looked down. Because he fired me after 9 years. No warning, no severance. And because I always liked you, Rachel. You were the only one who said thank you. We didn't hug. We didn't need to. I packed the evidence into my bag and left by the back entrance. The cold slapped me as soon as I stepped into the alley. That's when I noticed him, a man leaning against a silver sedan across the street. Too casual, too still. I walked faster, letting my heels echo. At the next corner, I turned hard left, weaving through a row of parked cars. He followed. At the traffic light, I waited until the crosswalk turned red, then cut across mid-intersection as horns blared. Behind me, I heard brakes squeal. When I glanced back, he was stuck on the opposite curb, boxed in by a delivery van. I vanished into a crowd of lunchtime office workers like smoke through a grate. By evening, I was back at my hotel, a modest suite in a mid-range chain with decent security and paper-thin walls. I opened my laptop to check emails and saw it. Subject notice of legal action, attached a formal complaint filed that afternoon. My name. The charge: digital theft and wire fraud. Filed by Greg Moore's attorney, Mason said over the phone minutes later. They're panicking. I didn't answer. He went on. It's retaliation, Rachel. A bluff. You're over the target. Tell that to my heart rate, I murmured, closing the file. There was a knock on the door. I cracked it open to find the hotel manager fidgeting with his badge. Ms. Moore, we noticed some irregularities. Your keycard wasn't used, but security logs show. Your room was accessed between 3:14 and 3:19 p.m. Nothing appears taken, but we thought you should know. I kept my face still. Thank you. Please forward the logs to my assistant. The door shut. I went straight to my desk, fingers trembling slightly as I opened the laptop case. My backup drive was gone. In its place, a single yellow sticky note right where the drive had been. Too slow. I stared at it for a long moment, then crushed it in my fist. A few minutes later, another email pinged. No name, no attachments. Just a subject line. You want war. You've got it. I didn't flinch this time. Because now it was personal. They thought I was alone. They forgot how dangerous I am when cornered. The new apartment smelled like fresh paint and someone else's laundry detergent. It was barely furnished, just a mattress on the floor, a folding table, and a plastic chair I'd bought for $20. But no cameras, no keycard records, no more fingerprints. I powered on the ancient laptop I'd stored in my old college boxes. It booted slowly, humming like it needed encouragement. From a duffel bag zipped beneath a stack of towels, I pulled out a drive, my real backup. I'd created it before Thanksgiving, weeks before anticipating the worst. Without admitting, I believed it. When the folders loaded, I smiled. Everything was there: the original trust documents, the bank memos, even the audio files Mason had cleaned and labeled. I didn't just have evidence. I had narrative. By noon, I was back at Mason's office. He'd cleared his afternoon schedule and his assistant brought in lunch neither of us touched. We packaged this. Right. Mason said, you won't need court subpoenas. You'll have the court of public opinion. We built a timeline when the trust started, when Emily's name appeared on side accounts, when my passwords were changed from the Morehouse's IP address. We overlaid emails from Sharon's account with voice recordings from the hidden cameras and Anna's memos. The pattern was undeniable. "This is a coordinated scheme," Mason said. "And you, Rachel, are the patsy they didn't think would fight back." "I'm not just fighting back," I said. "I'm flipping the whole board." I picked up my phone and scrolled until I found her name, Marla Chen, investigative reporter. We'd worked together 3 years ago when I uncovered data fraud at a fintech firm she was covering. She owed me. Marla answered on the third ring. "Rachel. It's been a while. I've got something," I said. "Bigger than fintech. Bigger than anything you've touched this year." "You always say that." "This time it's true. I've got documents, recordings, sworn testimony, and a family trying to frame me for the money they stole." Her tone shifted. "You want to go public? I want a fire I can't control." We arranged a secured drop later that day. She'd review the material, then decide. I knew she'd run it. Once she read the memos, she wouldn't be able to look away. Later, I called Anna. "I can't put you in danger," I said. "I want to speak," she replied. "Anonymously for now. But I want my name ready when it counts." I wrote that down. When the phone rang again, I nearly ignored it. But it was Nick. His voice was strained. "Your dad wants to talk. He said I should reach out to mediate." I laughed so hard I nearly dropped the phone. "Tell him this," I said. "I'll come to the table. But I bring the terms. Rachel?" He paused. "You're not the same." "I'm finally myself," I said. "That's what scares them." By nightfall, the press packet was complete. Mason had formatted it like a legal summary, but with charts and highlighted lines for effect. We included one particularly damning audio clip, Sharon whispering to Greg about how Emily isn't ready, but Rachel can't be trusted. At 8:03 p.m., Marla texted back. "Marla, this is good. Too good. If I run this, your parents won't recover." I stared at the screen, then typed back, "Rachel. Then let's make it front page." The dinner was only the first betrayal. Now came the reckoning. I woke that morning to silence, deceptive, hollow silence. Not from lack of noise, but from anticipation. The kind that hums beneath your skin, knowing the world is about to change and there's no going back. At 7:59 a.m., the exposé dropped. Marla's piece wasn't sensational. It didn't need to be. It was methodical, cold, precise, a journalistic scalpel dissecting the rot underneath a well-dressed family legacy. "Inherited Lies Inside the Moore Trust Scandal," that was the title. Below it, a banner quote from a source close to the subject: "It wasn't just theft. It was erasure." By 8:15, the article had been shared across 3 major financial forums. By 8:22, someone had leaked the redacted court documents Mason filed on my behalf, including excerpts from Anna's saved memos and snippets of Sharon's voice whispering about psych records to discredit her if needed. I didn't do interviews. That silence: "Get up and leave. Don't say anything to anyone." That same silence I weaponized. I didn't need to speak. I let their words betray them. At 8:40, Greg released a statement through a PR firm. "This is a private family misunderstanding that has unfortunately become public. We remain committed to resolution and privacy." It read like a ghostwriter's shrug. The internet, however, wasn't in the mood to shrug. Screenshots from the article exploded across social media. One user reposted the financial injury charts with the caption, "Imagine stealing from your own daughter and calling it a misunderstanding." Emily vanished by noon, her Instagram wiped, Twitter account deactivated. A swarm of old friends, former fans, and would-be supporters either retweeted the article or quietly unfollowed. Sharon's LinkedIn page was suddenly marked unavailable. Greg's business website went down for maintenance. By late afternoon, word spread that a prominent investor, someone Greg had touted as a cornerstone for a new project, had backed out, canceled a pending deal. No explanation. But the timing said enough. Still, I wasn't gloating. Not yet. Instead, I waited, watched. Sharon broke the silence first. A private email. Short. Knife clean. Subject, you've destroyed us. Message, I hope it was worth it. I stared at the screen for a long minute, then typed back. Not yet. But we're getting there. Mason called an hour later. Your credibility's holding. Even the skeptical sites are being cautious. No one wants to defend Greg right now. I exhaled. We hold steady. Nick showed up later that evening, face pale. Greg's retaining a new firm. High-end litigation counsel. He's going to challenge everything. Let him. He wants to sue. Nick added. Not just contest. He wants to bury this. I looked at him. Really looked. Are you still on his side, Nick? He didn't answer directly. Just said, I don't think anyone knows what side they're on anymore. At 9:17 p.m., Mason texted one-word subpoena. When I called, his voice was low and tight. Greg's team just filed. They're countersuing defamation, reputational harm, and damages. They're trying to paint this as revenge. Of course they were. Truth can destroy faster than any lie when it lands with proof. The courthouse stood quiet against a slate-gray sky, its columns streaked by the early December drizzle. I arrived early, hair pulled back, heels silent on the marble floor, breath even. Outside, the press buzzed behind barriers. Inside, the air was tight. My family sat 3 benches away, a carefully composed front Greg in a dark suit with his jaw locked. Sharon with folded arms and unreadable eyes, Emily, ghostly pale fingers fidgeting in her lap. Mason adjusted his tie beside me, voice low. We've done the prep. They're going to flail. You just stay steady. I plan to, I whispered. The court officer called the case, and we rose. The judge, a woman with hawk-sharp features, nodded as we approached. State your opening, she instructed. Mason began, voice calm, not showy. He walked the court through a precise timeline, forged documents, misused authorizations, the manipulation of my signature under pretense, and the suspicious financial movement from the Moore Trust. No embellishment. Just facts lined up like dominoes. Greg's lawyer rose next, almost smug. This is a deeply personal matter that's been inflated. My client contends that Ms. Moore's accusations stem from long-standing resentment and emotional instability. Furthermore, we intend to prove the alleged evidence is manufactured. That was their move. Paint me unhinged. Turn my calm into conspiracy. Then came my turn. I stepped up, hand raised, oath spoken. I met the eyes of the judge, then Greg. I did not look away. Mason guided the first line of questioning. Ms. Moore, did you authorize the transfer of assets out of the Moore family trust? No. Did you at any point consent to having your digital signature affixed to the transfer? No. He handed me a folder. Please identify this document, the original version of my signature authorization form. The one I notarized last year. It's clean. No edits. No clause about transferring trust ownership. And the next document, a doctored version submitted to the bank after the notarization. I found it on my cloud backup with a falsified timestamp. I could feel Greg tense across the room, but I kept going. Next, Mason introduced a new name. Your Honor, he said smoothly. We call our next witness Anna Dorsey. Greg's head snapped toward the doors as Anna walked in, shoulders squared, his face drained. She took the stand, raised her hand, and swore in with barely a tremor. Anna's testimony sliced cleanly, emails from Sharon requesting discretion, shredded memos she had salvaged, one explicitly stating Rachel has no place in the future of this estate. Greg's lawyer objected something about inadmissible motive speculation. Overruled. Then came the forensic technician confirming that Emily's login was used repeatedly on my financial accounts from devices located within the Moore home. Greg stood. That's a lie. The judge didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. Mr. Moore, one more interruption and you'll be held in contempt. He sank back into his seat, face crimson. Then it was time. I took a small recorder from my purse. May I? Mason nodded. This is a voicemail left on an unknown recipient's machine. The metadata has been verified and time-stamped 2 weeks before the trust transfer. I hit play. Greg's voice filled the courtroom. Arrogant, careless. Rachel was always the weak link. She'll fold. Just push her hard enough and she'll crumble on her own. No one moved. Even the court reporter paused her typing. Greg's lawyer leaned in to whisper something. The judge raised an eyebrow. Is there something to share, counsel? He stood slowly. Your Honor, we request a private recess to explore potential settlement terms. They tried to erase me. Now they scramble to remember who I am. By Monday morning, it was no longer just a courtroom drama. It had become a public reckoning. My phone buzzed endlessly. Journalists, former colleagues, distant relatives I hadn't heard from in years. Financial news outlets led with headlines like Moore Empire, shaken by inheritance scandal, and heir reclaims legacy after alleged betrayal. But I didn't watch the coverage. Instead, I sat quietly with a cup of black coffee in the corner of Mason's office, watching him sift through new documents from the court clerk. The storm was still gathering outside. Inside, I felt eerily calm. Greg's board is meeting at noon. Mason said, eyes never leaving the page. Emergency session. I'd say the writing's on the wall. It was. By 2 p.m., the first email came in. Greg Moore, founder and former CEO, had been suspended pending internal investigation. Multiple clients had preemptively terminated their contracts, citing ethical concerns. I forwarded the memo to Nick with a single line, one down. His reply came 10 minutes later, a picture of a white lily bouquet with a card, "You never folded." I was wrong to think you would. Sharon was next. A leak, likely unintentional, exposed her correspondence with a known tax strategist, advising how to conceal irregular trust distributions. Her name was quietly removed from the board of the Hartford Women's Foundation, effective immediately. No statement was issued, just absence. Emily emerged briefly, too briefly. Reporters caught her outside a downtown salon, cameras in her face. Do you deny your involvement? Someone asked. Was the trust legally transferred? She looked lost, then defiant, then confused. Her voice cracked as she said, everything I did was supposed to help Rachel. The clip aired, looped, dissected. Then she disappeared again. No posts, no tagged sightings, no trace. That night, I turned down a national news interview. The producer offered prime time. I didn't hesitate. No. She was quiet. Is it a privacy concern? No, I said. It's a peace concern. There was nothing more to say to the world. They could draw their own conclusions. Later, I walked past the Moore house. The lights were on, but the windows were closed tight. I paused on the sidewalk, unsure why I'd come. Just as I turned to leave, I felt eyes on me. Sharon stood behind the front window, her silhouette stiff and still. Our gazes locked. No words, no gestures, just the final silent punctuation to a sentence 20 years long. I didn't wave. I didn't need to. I kept walking past the memories, past the ashes of a name they'd tried to rebuild without me. Back in my hotel room, I kicked off my shoes and set my phone to silent. Then it rang anyway, a number I didn't recognize. I let it go to voicemail. 30 seconds later, curiosity won. I hit play. A calm, professional voice, Ms. Moore, this is the Stamford Probate Office. There's a matter regarding your grandfather's estate we need to review with you. Justice doesn't erase the scars, but it keeps them from festering. The lake was glassy and still reflecting the gray winter sky like an old mirror. I sat on the same bench where it had all begun, where I'd read the message that split my world into before and after. This time, I didn't flinch at every crunch of gravel. I didn't look over my shoulder. I just breathed. Beside me, the breeze tugged at the envelope in my coat pocket, the one handed to me by Mr. Winters at the probate office 2 days prior. His voice had been kind, but tentative. "Your grandfather left this. We believe Gregory withheld it." I hadn't opened it right away. I wanted silence first, and space. Now, with the scent of pine and cold soil in the air, I slipped my finger under the seal. The paper had yellowed slightly, the handwriting careful, but fading. "Rachel, if you're reading this, it means something went wrong. I never intended for your father to control everything. I asked for this to be part of the estate packet. If it was hidden, I'm sorry. You were always the light. I'm sorry I didn't fight harder for you. Keep going. Don't let their bitterness become yours." It wasn't long. It didn't need to be. Back at my new office, a modest space above a florist's shop in the north end of Stamford, I placed the letter in a simple wooden frame and set it beside my laptop. Anna was at the desk outside, her sleeves rolled up, eyes on a spreadsheet. She looked up as I entered, her smile soft but real. She'd stayed. That meant more than I could explain. We were starting small, just the two of us for now. But the mission was clear: support for whistleblowers, legal referrals for financial abuse survivors, emotional strategy consulting for people who'd been silenced too long. I knew those battles. I'd survived them. Mason had called that morning to confirm something I already suspected. I had every right to challenge the probate terms. I could likely reclaim a portion of the estate now that the forged documents had unraveled. "I can file the papers today," he said. I looked at the framed letter, then back at my reflection in the window. Not yet. Some things couldn't be reclaimed the way lawyers thought. Some things had to be rebuilt, not restored. Nick showed up briefly that afternoon. He didn't ask to come in, just stood outside holding a small box. Inside it was the cufflink I'd once given him when we were still foolish enough to believe love could survive secrets. "I was wrong," he said simply. "About them. About you. I should have helped sooner." "I know," I replied. He waited. The silence between us settled like dust. "I forgive you, Nick," I added. "But we don't go back." He nodded, a flicker of relief in his eyes. "I didn't come hoping we would. Just wanted to say it." He left without pushing for more. That was something, at least. By sunset, I was alone again. The inbox chimed softly. A new referral had come in, our first since launching the consultancy website. I opened the file. The client's name sat at the top in bold letters: Gregory Moore. My breath caught just for a second. Below, in smaller text, referred anonymously. I didn't get revenge. I reclaimed what was mine and lit a path for others. Snow blanketed the streets outside my window, muffling the city's noise into a serene hush. Inside my office, a small kettle hissed on the side table while Anna reviewed intake forms. A line of new clients waited quietly, some with trembling hands, others with steel in their eyes. Each of them carried a story that once felt unspeakable. Now they were ready to be heard. The envelope from the IRS came mid-morning, the seal sharp and official. I slid it open carefully, my pulse steady. Inside, the letter confirmed what I already suspected: Greg had been indicted on multiple counts of tax fraud. There would be no comfortable retirement shielded by silence. The Moore estate had filed for protective restructuring. The firm he built could no longer hide under its old name. I didn't smile. Not yet. But I did exhale. That evening, I stood at a podium in a small auditorium filled with financial analysts, lawyers, and survivors. My keynote wasn't about tactics. It was about silence. How we're trained to stay quiet in the name of family or fear, or the fantasy that things will correct themselves. Silence is a choice, I said into the mic. So is justice. Afterward, a woman approached me, early 30s, eyes bright but tired. "You helped me speak up," she whispered. "My boss will answer for what he did." I didn't ask her name. I just nodded and shook her hand. That was enough. I returned to the office late. The lights were soft, The walls lined with files and clipped articles, some of them mine, some from clients. Anna had gone home. I sat at my desk and pulled out my phone. One last thing left to do. The photo uploaded quickly, me in a red coat standing at the gates of the Moore house. Behind me, the mansion loomed, quiet shadows pooling in its windows. I typed the caption slowly. I don't live here anymore, but I remember. Then I hit post. There were already comments by the time I set the phone down. Some from strangers, some from names I hadn't seen in years. But I didn't reply. I wasn't looking back. I was drawing a line. Greg would face the system now. Not me. Sharon had withdrawn from public life, and Emily. Last I heard, she was in Arizona trying to disappear. Maybe she would. Maybe she wouldn't. Either way, I wouldn't be chasing her. That story was over. I glanced at my watch. 10 minutes until my next intake. I liked that word, intake. It meant someone was stepping in, stepping forward. A new file sat on my desk. No label, just a simple post-it referred anonymously. I opened it. Gregory Moore. I didn't laugh, but the irony hit like a silent chord through my chest. The man who once said I was the weakest link now needed help. I stared at the file, then closed it and slid it into the intake pile. I wasn't sure yet what I'd do with it. Maybe nothing. Maybe everything. It wasn't about revenge. It never had been. They tried to erase me. Instead, I became impossible to ignore. And now I help others do the same. Outside, the snow kept falling, clean, silent, absolute. And inside, I was finally home. The people who once dined behind fine china and velvet curtains now sit in silence, stripped of their illusions. Truth didn't just expose them, it held a mirror up to everything they tried to bury. Justice may not come dressed in triumph, but when it arrives, it leaves no room for denial. No wall of lies can stand forever against the tide of truth. If you felt her fight was worth it, comment 1. If you wished for more, comment 2. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and let justice echo beyond the final page.